catch this up.
Okay, that's cool. Oh, man.
Nothing like performing under pressure.
Yeah, we need you to reformat the entire show, Kent.
Yeah, well, that's not that bad, but yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Who do we have here? We got Book Davies on, Harold Locke. Senthil Kumar is here. Says, hello, everybody. Harold says, on the wing for you bird watchers. This show has me paying more attention to the birds. Yeah.
God bless him.
That's been the same thing I've been saying since show number 1, is that it's
Well, they need attention.
Dan, the only problem is the range map doesn't work, but I think we're just going to go with it.
Well, it's because birds do not have boundaries.
Well,
So-
yeah, they don't mind their own business and
and
stay where they're
anybody-
supposed to.
Any person that's into bird watching will never question your range commentary.
Huh? Do I know it's live? Yeah, yes, we know it's live.
This portion.
We know it is. Yes, we do.
That's why we're not speaking French.
I don't know why we're not speaking in code.
Je m'appelle pas Mouton.
Yes. Yeah, it's really cool how birds can, I mean, they're, it's such a tiny brain. They do so much,
It's astounding.
It is astounding.
And the one bird species that's tested to know that they're the smartest of all bird species is
Crow.
the family that includes crows, ravens, and magpies. Primarily those, yeah. They're so smart. If they know there's a food somewhere in a little hole, they'll grab it, a twig or whatever, and they'll use that as a way to move the food up to the point where they can get it.
Jeez.
I know it's like a miracle, dude.
It's a miracle. It's gosh darn miracle there, Dan.
Like a damn miracle.
Well, hello, everybody. This is Scott Roberts here from Explore Scientific and the Explore Alliance, and I'm here with Dan George and Kent Marts. And is that our 17th program of On the Wing? Is that right?
16th.
16th.
I have it as 13th, episode 13. That's what I have on the thing. I don't know. I've got.
No, Kent, you're right, Kent. 13th.
It's one of them.
It would be 16, but there was a couple of weeks we skipped, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Perhaps
Yeah.
I got it wrong then. Okay. Anyways, we're back. And we got a really cool, the theme, birds and their friends is a very cool topic. And so I'm looking forward to this program. I'm going to let you guys take it away.
Okay, let me get my screen set up here. Come on, cooperate. All righty, now share. Share sounds. I've learned from the early episodes. All right, so here we go. I need to set this to sound. Welcome to On the Wing with Dan George. Hi, Dan. How you doing today?
Cool. How about you?
I'm good. So had a change in mid-flight, so to speak, to stick with the bird thing. The bad puns already. It's going to be a brutal show, apparently. This is going to be something to crow about, too. So without,
Oh, my God.
Wah, 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 wah.
I'm telling you, I feel a lot of puns climbing on my back today. Going to get off. So that will be a pun later on. So here we go. Like I said, something to crow about. This is a grackle, okay, with a meal. Now, it was once upon a time a friend of some nature, but now it's just a big old mash of bug. But I say it's a grackle. I've got a crow call sound up here. That's going to be a mistake. Shucks.
Save it for the crow.
Yeah. So we'll go ahead and talk about the grackle.
Well, most people, especially in southern states, that would exclude Minnesota, Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and so forth. But they don't exist there. They're primarily southern states because they don't like it when it's real cold. But during the summertime, they will migrate a little bit further north, but primarily they're central and southeastern in the states. They're about 12 and a half inches long, and they usually are huge flocks, and they're really pretty much nuisances.
And they're
But they
noisy as can be.
The
So-
noise, they make noise. The cool thing about them, when you look at them, they're kind of good looking because they're iridescent and they're primarily black with the iridescence of blues and greens, and they got that broad yellow piercing eye.
And
However, if you looked at the female, and we don't have a picture of the female is primarily all brown. So this is certainly a black one.
so we'll move on and go to the crow. What's going on here? So that was a grackle, but I had the crow. So, okay. So my slides are messed up. We're just going to go on with the sounds of a crow.
That's a crow.
Yeah, that's a crow. We all know what crows sound like. And it isn't a big group of crows, a murder of crows, if I remember correctly. I think is what it's called. So anyway,
Oh.
but here's why I went with a crow, because there's a crow and their friends are these cow elk that Terry took over on the Buffalo National River. We all know what the crow sounds like. Caw, caw, caw. And they make other sounds as well. So historical current range of elk. If you look on the map right there, there's a elk herd in northwest Arkansas along the Buffalo National River. The herd numbers multiple hundreds. And so here we go. Here's a cow elk talking. I went with a cow elk because all the elk in this picture are cow elks. And here we go. obviously this is a game farm. It's high ranch, high fence.
Good one.
Boy, she's a talker, isn't she? Obviously not a bird, and probably wouldn't be confused with a bird, but could be confused with a bird, I guess, if you don't know what it is. So
Well, we could confuse our listeners and our watchers really pretty good, because a lot of people know that crows and ravens are pretty much identical to most people's eyes.
right.
And the one in the background is probably a raven, and I'll tell you why. A crow is about 17 inches long. Whether it's male or female, they're about 17 inches long. A raven is 24 inches long. Let's take a look at the back behind the coyote. That's a raven, because it's got a huge beak, whereas a crow has kind of a nicer, smaller beak. But the main there's a couple of differences when you see them flying. The crow, once again, is 17 inches. The raven is 24 inches. So you got it's half again the size of a crow that the raven is. With a raven will glide, whereas a crow will never stop flapping its wings.
So that's a great field thing. I did not know that.
Yeah,
a raven,
that's a very important one.
A raven glides and a crow continues to flap.
That's correct. Unless they're coming down to land, then of course they got to stop flapping. Yeah.
But
So
that big old beak, like shown in this picture, it's hard to say that beak, but it's not a great picture. But all right, here we go. Let's listen to a raven. And one thing I noticed is the range map doesn't show them being anywhere close. But as you noted, right as the show started, birds don't have boundaries per se. They don't honor the maps in the field guides. So here we go.
that's perfect. That's a perfect raven call, and the call behind it sounds like a magpie. But bottom line is that's the raven, and just remember for folks, when people see, especially around as autumn approaches, the ravens and the crows, wherever people are living, whatever one you have there, they start forming in larger flocks.
So let's go back and listen to the crow real quick.
Okay,
To compare.
that's a Grackle.
Yeah, but it's a crow call.
It'll be different, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the difference. Is side by side is pretty interesting. Yep, side by side is very interesting. So anyway, we all know what a coyote. It's a pretty picture of what looks to be a male coyote. And
Why would you say that, Kent?
Say again.
Why would you say that?
He's equipped.
Yeah, there you go. All right.
Potentially equipped. That's all right.
This is an adult audience.
Yes, mostly. Well, he's equipped. We can just.
It
And I love this warning: 1 hour of coyote sounds. And that's the sound you hear in the evenings and at night. And that sounds like coyotes you don't want to hear because you're too close to them.
Holy cow.
Sound I make in the morning.
All right, so you get the idea. The range map on the coyote is pretty interesting. All of Canada, or all of Alaska, all of the United States, weirdly not in the Yucatan, but up in Newfoundland and Nova Scotia, not, and up in the far reaches. I don't know if it just gets, you can't say it gets too cold, because up here has got to be just as close as over there towards Greenland. So I don't know. It's just a weird range map, but the coyotes have urbanized very well. There are now populations. I remember reading an article a couple of years ago about the coyote population in New York City, and in deep into the city, and they've become very attuned to living around humans. So, like many birds,
And they're not bashful.
and they know how to hide. And look at that big bushy tail. That's always amazed me how
Yeah.
bushy a tail can be.
So how would
All
how would you compare that to a fox, since you probably have both foxes and coyotes and
Size and coloration.
Okay.
We have red foxes and gray foxes here, but they're more the size of
Collie?
no, smaller than that.
Oh,
Coyotes are the size of a full-sized standard collie.
Yeah.
Lassie. Is Timmy
Yep.
stuck in the well, Lassie? It's going to be that size of a coyote. Is that size longer potentially? But foxes are about half that size.
wow.
And the red foxes are just beautiful. We had the house in Bentonville where I lived, just sold it last year. Had a fox den down in the woods west of the house, and every year raised a litter of kits, and they'd be out playing around. There'd be 5, 6, 7 of them playing around, and they've been there for years. I've lived there 20 years, and foxes have raised 20 litters of kits down there in that den. So it's always cool to see. So this is a female red-winged blackbird sitting on a log with its friend, a red-eared slider. So here we go, red-winged blackbird female, a little bit different. I studied this picture, and Dan, you concur it is a red-winged female, correct? Even
That's
though
correct.
couldn't quite see any red on it like the picture here shows, but I settled on that's what it was, and Dan confirmed it. So
I have more to say. I'll have more to say.
yep, here's the sound. And there's the husband in the background. Okay, so you can hear the male in the background there somewhere, but she's just sort of a little cheep,
Yeah.
tweet, or whatever.
The red-winged blackbirds are 8 3/4 inches long. Regardless of male or female, they're both 8 3/4 inches long. It's pretty easy to find out red-winged blackbird because they have the impressive red epaulets on each of its upper wings with a yellowish little fringe on that. And also the call of the male red-winged blackbird mimics this sound, and that is conqueree, conqueree. As we discussed before, lots of birds are named after the sound they make, like a chickadee, because they say a chickadee, chickadee sound, okay? The female doesn't have that conqueree sound, but it has the one that Kent just played there. But now, physically now, they're dramatically different other than size. Actually, there's no red on a female red-winged blackbird at all. There's no red. They are basically pretty much brownish, heavily streaked, as you'll see on this picture that Kent has there. But check out that eyebrow above the eye. That's incredibly prominent. It's very well much an identifying mark for a female red-winged blackbird.
Okay. So listen to the sound again. All right, so all over the United States, ubiquitous in the lower 48, basically.
That's correct.
And well up into our Canadian friends and our.
And they are found almost 100% near water,
Right.
swamp lake or river, stream, whatever. It's always by water.
All right, so who knew that red-eared sliders and turtles make sounds? You want to think I was just, yeah, but Matt from the Virginia Herpetological Society shows the distribution, and these all came from Arkansas. So in the heart of the red-eared slider. So here we go. It's almost like a barking sound.
Sounds like an airplane.
It's a bird. It's a
sparrow mimicking
it's a
an
sparrow
airplane.
mimicking a turtle, mimicking an airplane.
Mhm.
So who knew? I found some other sounds that said many of the sounds that turtles make generally are associated with an infection of some sort that they're trying to clear out. So the reality is, I don't know if that's the call of the turtle or what, but there you go. Red-eared sliders do make sounds. So moving along. And here is the Arkansas state bird, the northern mockingbird with a spider web. I couldn't find a friend. So there's a couple of pictures I wanted to use, but we hadn't used the mockingbird, a lovely bird. So clearly there's a spider somewhere. So I know they're friends, at least up until the time the mockingbird might eat the spider. Here we go.
Yep, that'll happen.
Yep, here we go. Sorry about that. Didn't delete that off. That's the sound I know. Okay, so that's a starting sampling. Dan, what you got?
I have a lot to say about this bird. Over the years of people knowing that I'm a birder, I get calls from various people says, "What's that bird that wakes me up every morning at 3 o'clock? I can't wait to kill that SOB." They have a tendency in the springtime during breeding period of singing in the middle of the morning. And so all of you folks that are watching now that have mockingbirds in your area, which excludes places like above Colorado and all the way north, they're like a warm weather creature. Also, they're part of the thrasher family. And for people that know about thrashers, are fantastic birds. They're all around the size of this is 10 inches long. They all have terrific melodious singing abilities, but they have one thing in common, and that is they'll get a series of a few notes and then they will repeat it. So they're a repeating kind of a song. So whenever you hear that repeating kind of a song, your first thought is there's a thrasher somewhere around here. And depending upon where you are, then you would know which particular thrasher or mockingbird would be in your area. And everybody that has mockingbirds, they've all seen them before, but they're, besides having a light colored throat, head, and underbelly, they have a very prominent yellow band on its wing, its primary wing, right there.
Which oftentimes appears white.
White, no.
Yeah.
What I say, brown?
Yellow, yeah, yellow, which is
white,
yeah.
white.
And these beautiful,
I'm standing corrected.
yeah, these beautiful black wings, are striking on its body. Now, it's called a mocking. Say again, Dan.
I mean, it's a striking bird. It really is. And
Yeah.
but the thing you'll want to pay attention to is the way they repeat that song, usually a double time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and now they're called mockingbirds. Is that because they will mock other sounds? And
Well, I bet you that 25% of the people watching right now, in the springtime, if they have mockingbirds, they've been attacked while they're walking near the nest.
I'm raising my hand on that one because,
Okay, there you go.
because indeed, yes.
They're not here in Colorado. I wish they were. But if they were here and I walk near the nest, they're going to mock me for being anywhere close to the nest.
Okay. And I'm struck because it's called the northern mockingbird, but it's not in the north. I've wondered about why. And there's no southern mockingbird, so it just became the northern mockingbird. Strange, but any idea?
Well, yeah, there is actually there are 2 or 3 other mockingbirds from South America to Central America. I don't know them well enough to know whether they're called the southern or not, but and whoever named them the northern, I don't know. But hey, there's more than just this mockingbird. I happen to know that there is one that was in, I can't remember the name right now, forgive me, but there was one that I saw in Florida that was off the migratory range, and they were from Central America. So
and there are a number that came up and I was looking for, but again, I don't remember the names of them as well. All right, so moving along. So we're winding up the show there, Scott. So
by the way, forgive me, Kent, there is a Bahama Mockingbird and there's a blue Mockingbird, and neither one is in really in North America.
okay. All right. Okay. All right. So here we go. We're going now on to the, oh, there we go. Listen a little bit more to it. I just love to listen to that. You know, it's just.
Well, I can tell you that in North America, which includes Canada, there's over 975 bird species, and it's the only bird that makes that kind of song. And in fact, all 975 are discernible by the call that they make.
Yep.
That's hard to believe, isn't it?
You know, you'd think that somebody would sound similar, but they just don't. So, all right, moving on. Now, this is amazing. And and Dan, you were shocked by this picture as well. Shocked might be the strong word. So this is a red-tailed hawk. Now, you look at it, you think, well, it doesn't have a red tail. But the closer you start looking at it, you realize that there's an eastern kingbird on its back. Just a fascinating picture. Lots going on here. Let's talk about what's going on with the coloration, and before we get into the red-tailed hawk sound.
Okay, most people would say a red-tailed hawk is a red-tailed hawk because you see that the tail is red on the dorsal, the top side. Okay, so when a hawk will cruise over your head and they bank such that you can see the top of their tail, and it's a red tail, it'll be prominently reddish, rusty, kind of a rusty red. But when you look at the dorsal side, the top side, there's no red on a red-tailed hawk's tail. But however, in this particular picture, what's unique about this is that by the way, the hawk is the hawk here is about 16 inches long, and the eastern kingbird is 8 inches long. So if you see the bird like this, take a look at the back of the hawk. You see the white, they're called scapulars, which is part of their wing structure.
Right
on
here.
Both sides, that, yes, sir. And the other side, okay. Or they could be sitting on a fence. When they sit on the fence, the scapulars are the prominent ones that you will see, and it creates a V. So when you see a white V on the back of a hawk, it is a red-tailed hawk. How about that?
And so this one is a juvenile, you're thinking, right?
I'm thinking that's the juvenile. From all the pictures that I could see, the only one that shows the dorsal wings, a dorsal tail that's not reddish would be the juvenile.
Okay. And so
you take a look at the scapulars showing the V, that's a field mark.
so when this, you can see it, when this bird folds its wings, it's going to have a V along its
Yes.
shoulders going to its back. Okay.
Now it might be minimal because it might be unimpressive, let's say, but it's still it's there. And I can say also that the red-tailed hawk is the most popular found hawk in North America, and it's the most varied from a perspective of coloration and modeling. So, you know, you just really never know. You got to look at all these other field marks. Another field mark, by the way, for a red-tailed hawk, when you see the breast of a red-tailed hawk, they have modeling that almost gives you the impression that they have like a bra on. In other words, coloration horizontally across its breast. And it might be minimal. It might be minimal or it might be a lot, but you are guaranteed if you have modeling around the breast area on the front side of a hawk, it is a red-tailed hawk.
Cool. You know, this is, I just, you know, we've all seen birds, you know, swooping in and trying to chase off hawks and bigger birds. But this bird was literally on the back and riding the back of that hawk, according to Terry. So
our viewers have probably noticed many times, especially in springtime, that you will see a large bird like a hawk or a falcon or even an eagle. You'll see it soaring, and you're going to see the little other birds kind of attacking it. It's a verb that's called hawking. So the little birds, because they know that bird is a predator and eventually could possibly get to its nesting area. But it happens to the ravens, it happens to the crows, it happens to the eagles. All this hawking, but the main species of birds that seem to be the hawking would be like your crows or like blackbirds or starlings and places and birds like that. You wouldn't see a warbler or a sparrow up there. It would be a larger bird.
which you find it sort of unusual to see a kingbird doing it.
Now, the kingbird, this spectacular, this might be the most amazing photo that Terry has ever shown on your show. And that is, you see the white at the base of the tail. And we talk a lot about, field marks. When you see a kingbird, which is about 8.5 inches long, and you see it sitting on a branch or sitting anywhere, and it's a darkish bird, but it's got that prominent white border, it is an eastern kingbird,
So
nothing else.
We have a better picture of a kingbird here in a second. Let's listen to the red-tailed hawk.
Yep.
Yeah, that screech, I guess it's what I would call it, is a unique sound. Beautiful sound.
It's so unique that, and all of us have seen movies over the last 50 years that, well, I have, because I'm old. Thanks, Scott. But anyway, that noise right there, lots of movies. I would bet you hundreds of movies when they let's say it's a horror movie, or it's the Indians coming over the bluff of the mountain, and the cowboys are looking at them. You're going to hear that same little screech. They'll pipe that sound in there because it's distinctive of a red-tailed hawk.
I find it interesting that I saw things in some movie clips where they showed bald eagles flying and then overdubbed the screech of a red-tailed hawk, because eagle sounds just aren't majestic, and the sound they make just doesn't match that idea of a big screech like that. I was interesting to see what they were doing, how they did that. So let's move on to, there we go. Eastern
Beautiful.
Kingbird. Beautiful shot.
Wow. Awesome.
So talk about it again. Now that we're looking at it, it's
Yeah.
just a beautiful bird.
It always has a smoky gray crown that includes the eye. It also has whitish on the throat, but the most prominent thing is the terminal bar of white on its tail.
And these birds are, you said they're 6 inches long?
8.5 inches long.
8.5 inches long. Okay.
And what these birds are considered to be flycatchers. All of the kingbirds are basically known as flycatchers, and what that really means that their habit is they'll go to a perch on a dead branch, for example, and they'll see a moth or some kind of insect flying. They'll go out, they'll catch the moth, and they'll come right back to the same spot on that branch.
And wait for the next buffet to fly by.
Exactly. All flycatchers have the same jizz, which is means general impression of size and shape.
So when you think about it, the Scissortail Flycatcher looks remarkably like this bird. It just has a much longer tail, different coloration,
but about 6 or 7 more inches.
Yeah, but built much the same, body wise.
Yeah.
So are these monomorphic, or do you know?
This one is not monomorphic. The only one that's monomorphic, by the way, was the Mockingbird.
Okay.
All Mockingbirds look the same, but in this particular case, a female kingbird would not. They'd have whitish on the tip, but they wouldn't have a white throat. They wouldn't look like the male.
Okay, there is a difference then. All right. So here we go,
Yeah.
listening to the sound. That peep is what the sound. You can't maybe see it.
No, it's the sound.
Yeah. It was far enough away you couldn't see the beat moving.
Well, it's not a video, is it?
Yeah, this is a video.
It's not moving.
Is it not moving on your end? It's moving on my end.
Okay.
It's just a single note over and over again, it sounds like. Okay, so I'm amazed at how many of these sound clips and video clips have red-winged blackbirds in the background. Obviously water is the great attractant for birds, but geese, but especially red-winged blackbirds, probably because they're so loud and their calls carry so far. But that's just a single note basically repeated over and over again. Not a lot of variety in their calls, but it's just a single note just over and over again.
The more that we study kingbirds and you see its relatives, like the others, there's several other kingbirds, like 3 or 4 of the kingbirds, and then you look at all the flycatchers, there are probably 10 or 12 flycatchers. They all have similar behavior, but the sounds are totally different for every one of them.
So I wish I had more pictures of flycatchers that we could put together and do a side-by-side comparison. I may look through and try and build that as a theme here one of these days.
I'll add one thing about flycatchers. As a family, the flycatchers are the most difficult for birders to identify because so many of them are almost identical, and you really don't have the prominence of a white terminal bar on the tail and things like that. probably would be kind of a boring program, Kent, because the only way that you can tell one from the other really is the sound they make. So,
But see, that's what I think. I don't think that would be a boring show, because it would be sort of interesting to see how similar they are, but how dissimilar their sounds are. Driving home the point that sound is often a better identifier than the Mark I eyeball with binoculars.
the frustration for a birder that, let's say, doesn't really have a lot of time to hunt in the book and look at all the field marks and stuff like that, is when you hear you're out in the region where there's 3 or 4 or 5 of them, and even some of their sounds are the same. But I'll defer to you, my friend. I just show up because you want me to talk like I'm talking right now.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So what's interesting is, I guess the kingbirds all migrate. This is their breeding area, but they
Yes.
they're all in migratory species. So they're currently probably preparing or moving south right now because
correct.
the onset of winter.
That's-
Which sort of leads me into our subject next week is going to be a little bit different. I may show a few birds, but I want to spend some time, and we've talked about it a little bit, how they're using Doppler radar to track bird migrations at night. And they can actually count the birds and are now making predictions of flight paths and where they're going. I want to get into the science of that a little bit. So next week is going to be a little bit more maybe technical, if you will, with some science behind what they're discovering about migration patterns and when they migrate. Because previously, no one knew that, on last night, it was predicted that 570 million songbirds would be migrating, or birds would be migrating. So,
Right.
And on some nights it's up in the millions. So it's an interesting how they've used weather radar, Doppler weather radar, to identify clouds of birds and literally be able to count the birds, just like they can determine the size of hail drops. They can determine the size of birds. And
I'll add one thing, Kent, and I think I'm pretty close if I were to say that 100% of migratory birds migrate at night. And they use the stars.
And therein lies another problem. A study came out today that I saw that was hit the media today, that a study out of Europe says in the last 25 years, light pollution has increased by 49%. However, the study notes that with the transition to LED lights, and especially the bright blue-white LEDs, the sensors on the satellites are not sensitive and don't see that light. And so the estimate is significantly more light pollution than what the studies from satellites are showing, because they're not sensitive to that blue-white light, and therefore the light pollution is being underestimated by the satellites and the studies of those. So I may include both those a little bit because they are interrelated. And
Yep.
And what they're doing, the whole purpose is they're using these forecasts to ask, cities with skyscrapers with buildings more than 3 or 4 stories tall to turn off all their lights on specific nights when those big pulses of migrations happen, so that the lights don't confuse and cause, migration problems for all those birds trying to head down to Central and South America as they go through over, say, Houston and Dallas and places like that. So interesting. And so we always end up with a pretty animal picture. And I felt like we'd change it up just a little bit. And we'll talk about a pretty human picture. Here's a bunch of bird watchers out in the wintertime, obviously, at the Eagle Watch Nature Area at Gentry, Arkansas, which is where Terry shot a significant number of his photos. They are looking at a gaggle of bald eagles, a gang or whatever they are, I should have included that picture here that he took at the same time. There's probably 15 or 20 bald eagles up in a tree. Should have included it. Maybe show it next week. So anyway, I think the takeaway I'm beginning to see is from all these sounds and pictures is if you want pictures, you need to hang around water a little bit, to give yourself an advantage. Or if you want to get birds, you need to hang around water a little bit just to give yourself that advantage of concentration, because they all have to have water. So that's the end of birds with their friends. And I think all these people are friends of birds. So that's why I included it here. So there we go. So that's the show for this week.
Thanks, Kent.
What's our show for next week?
It's going to be migration forecast. I haven't come up with a good name, but we're going to talk about migration forecasting that's being done, as well as a little bit of talk about light pollution as well, and the effects it has on birds. So going to be a little bit different. I'll have a bird picture too, just to sort of stay with the theme, but to get a little bit more technical and talk about some science behind how we're able to know that these birds are migrating at night. And I mean, we've all known that birds migrate at night, but the scope and scale that you get when having a lower 48 view because of the ubiquitous coverage of weather radar really drives home the fact of how big these migrations really are. And amazingly, they're all at the same time. And they're driven by, having watched it for the last few weeks, they're all related to weather patterns effectively. When birds get on the backside of a counterclockwise rotating storm, and they ride those backside winds for hundreds and thousands of miles. And in many instances, it's weather related, opportunistic air patterns, wind patterns to assist them on their journey, because flying into headwinds is not a good idea when you're a little bird and you're trying to go 1,000 miles and not stop and have to refuel. So anyway, that's what we'll be doing next week.
Okay, that's great. So tomorrow we have a focus on astrophotography coming up, and we have also the Astronomical League live program with Claude Plymate. Claude used to work at the Big Bear Solar Observatory. He was like their lead astronomer over there. And he also worked at the McMath Solar Observatory in near Tucson. So he's a great presenter, and I think you'll learn a lot. Until that time, we will tell you to keep looking up, because that's where you're going to find the birds. and if you have submissions, you're taking pictures of birds or whatever, you'd like to share those with us, we certainly have time on this program to make that part of our weekly contribution. So take care, and thanks very much.
Scott, where do they send it to?
Explore Alliance at explorescientific.com.
There you go.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Alpen Wings 8x42 binoculars are designed with versatility in mind. The BAK4 fully multi-coated optics, combined with the lightweight and ergonomic open-hinge body design, make these waterproof binoculars the perfect tool for any situation or weather. Armored and purged, these binoculars are tough enough to last against any minor bumps and dings and will never suffer from internal fogging. With the long eye relief and twist-up eye cups, the Alpen Wings 8x42 binoculars are the perfect tool for any adventure.